Any other questions? Yes.
I was interested in reading your memoir about your candor in regard to not having money, but somehow surviving, sometimes on the public dole. And I was impressed that you included that in your memoir. And that must have been a little bit difficult because you were taking advantage of the system in a sense. And then you wrote about the travel agency, that there was some shenanigans going on. You were getting free flights. Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah. You know, I wanted the book. What role does rhetoric play in our lives? How can we be persuaded by a strong, powerful political leader, or just the rhetoric of the times, or the consciousness of the culture of which we belong? And what is right and what is wrong? So I wanted to look at some of the bigger questions, because that's what we also had to address. And because we went outside the system, we weren't anointed as, yes, you're right. There's certain crimes that happen within a system, and they're legal. You know, you can go back to 2008 and the banks or whatever it is. But we first got commodity food, and that meant giant cans of peanut butter. This is when we were in Greenleaf. Giant cans of peanut butter. There was cheese, peanut butter, cheese, maybe butter. Butter.
Chopped meat.
Yeah, maybe we passed, the chopped meat we may have passed on. And I don't know if there was any other grain, but, and you know, they got pictures of eating, you know, these big cans of peanut butter. That didn't feel so bad. It was kind of surplus. It didn't feel so good. But then Lyndon Johnson passed the bill where food stamps, so that so that you should be able to get enough money to have a balanced diet. So I remember going down to apply, and the whole rhetoric becomes, how do you justify your way of living? Well, the government feels illegal, it's the man, they're immoral, so we're trying to do something better, and so we can do things that are, that seem shady, but they're for a better good. It's a classic question.
Rationalization.
Right.
Yeah, rational, yeah. And so, but when you believe it, and if you didn't believe it, you wouldn't be doing some of the things, or you couldn't make the shift. You know, and you somehow have to throw yourself to the other side of a reality. There really is a line you have to cross. And so we went down, and I remember maybe Carol's, because she was an actress, and she loved fantasy, so she said, well, I pretended I was there, you know, I don't know if she did or not. But I'm thinking, I'm straight arrow. I've always been straight arrow. I was the straightest arrow hippie you ever met. And I must have gone through the process, and I applied. But we had these. And I'm standing in line, and I think I used the line in the book that I was I grew up in an educated household. My father was a professor, and we weren't wealthy, but I always saw myself as the beneficent one. We gave the money to somebody who didn't have, and there I am on the receiving end. You know, so that felt a little, well, what does that mean? You know, and that's very revealing too, because when you're the giver, you always have the power. And in life, whether you're the present giver, whether you're the giver in the family, whatever it is, there's a certain righteousness in it. So to be on the other side is just to learn that lesson. But there's a certain shame. I'm standing in line at whatever grocery store is around, you know, and this is when we weren't dumpster diving or, you know, gleaning from whatever's around. And I remember being embarrassed. I didn't want people to see that I was going to pay for my food with food stamps. Because here I am, I'm a healthy young woman, you know, I've got all my limbs, I got my brain cells, and I've got food stamps. And why do I have food stamps? But this is my life. So you're on either side of it, and how do you balance it? So I think in the book I talk about how I kind of palm the food stamps against my legs, so when I have to pay, I just, you know, I'm not flaunting them out there, you know. And they also had a play money quality, because they were printed, you know, like Monopoly money, got pink and yellow, and so there was, and I wanted to bring those dilemmas in, that although you cross the line, it's not as black and white. There's always subtleties in any decision we make in life and compromises we make. And the tickets were, this was while we were in Greenleaf, I think, somebody who was, you know, they're on the hippie spectrum. I'm in childcare, what is the autistic spectrum? What would be the hippie spectrum? You know, there's a range of all different kinds of people. Some of them were hangers-on. There was a low-life aspect that sort of connected to the underbelly, because you have all these innocent people with drugs running around saying, everything I have is yours and peace and love, and there's always somebody who's going to manipulate and take advantage of that. And then there are just people that are hustlers, no matter where they are, under what guise. So somehow this guy, who's a friend of a friend of a friend, had stolen or pilfered some plane tickets. And he was gonna, and he sold them to us like at about $100 a piece or something like that, or something very cheap. And the thing is, it was before computers, so the times are so innocent. So the trick was, and he also gave you a book with all the flight schedules and numbers. So if you got the first ticket to where, if you took it from Eugene to Portland or something, then you change your destination so that you get a properly written ticket from an agent. But the first ticket you have to write out. So you have to write it out carefully, and there's a whole code, and you've got to have everything done exactly right. So some of us traveled the world. One guy traveled all the way to Indonesia and ended up spending the next 5 years there or something, and he went through Greece and Japan and everywhere. Somebody else flew around the world. I think I flew home to visit my parents in Vermont or something like that. Scared to death that I was going to be arrested. But again, that was one of those things, well, what is American Airlines missing, you know what I mean, whatever. But still knowing it was a little funky and still being scared. And so there were those kind of moral conflicts. And also, I read the first piece, because the moral conflicts, where do we follow? That was, where do we follow? Where are we pressured by the people around us, whether it's a domestic situation, whether it's a hippie commune, whether it's whatever community you live in. Where do we find the strength to find our own internal truth? What is the truth? How do we stand up under the onslaught of somebody else's pressure, the manipulation of rhetoric? Those are big questions, and that's why I like that particular reading.
So did your parents ever visit you, Audrey?
Oh, are you kidding?
No.
Carol's parents came out.
Right.
They also had invested in the land, so I think. But my parents, and I told them I have 2 daughters that are grown and 2 grandchildren up in Portland. But I said to my daughter, if you ever do to me what I just because when we were in, Greenleaf, we had phones. I didn't call, I called maybe once a year or something like that. But when we were up here, there's no phone. They can't call us, I can't call them. And so I thought, if my daughters, I can't even say it, you know what I mean? If they were out of touch with me like that, I would have been horrified. But I did, at one point, I think it was after my husband left, and I had one of those tickets. Maybe I didn't visit them in Vermont. So I do remember being in my parents' house in Cleveland, and I think I put it in the book. And they had, they lived in Cleveland. In the Midwest, you get 2 big stories. You got a basement, you got an attic, and my father collected, clocks and Oriental rugs, and he liked to buy antiques and on secondhand shops. So the house is full of stuff. And I come in, and I got my, big old logging boots on, and I'm used to chopping wood. I'm used to the house being kind of chilly because you're always doing something. And I'm in this house, and it's got this stuff, and there's no breeze coming through the drafty parts of the I'm thinking, whoa, I felt like, the horse in the house. What am I doing here? What am I doing here? Yeah. Did I answer the question? I was get off. Any other thing?
Just a
Yes.
couple comments, maybe to stimulate other memories and thoughts. I was always impressed with how understated this place was.
Yeah.
And how accepting at the same time of us newbies who came in here looking odd and acting odd, the community was.
Yeah.
But then kind of the incredible little finds here and there in the community already embedded in it. Like, I don't know if you remember the foreign correspondent Eva Berger
No.
on NPR. She was the first who did the European scene. She was the daughter of Al Berger, who lived up the road here a little ways.
Yeah.
And delivered feed up and down the coast, originally, I think, by horse.
Yeah.
And she's since kind of disappeared. She was a really strong person. And then the number of artists and writers who were already here. And then the way the locals treated me, people like Herman Ethel at the gas station, and Kathy and Friday Phillips. And I remember I was in a restaurant or something one night, and a drunk approached me and my wife and the friends we were with, and he wanted to start a fight. And this was Thanksgiving or something. And I noticed all the locals just kind of got up from their chairs, walked over, didn't say a word, and pushed the guy back in
Yeah,
without any violence or anything. They were watching the scene.
yeah,
There's little things like that.
yeah. Well, you know, I had two thoughts, I mean, those are wonderful. When you know, this kind of thing sort of crystallizes things for me. This community was very accepting, I now realize it. Our tires weren't slashed, you know, we were not picked on, I felt safe. The only time I write about it in the book, the only time I really felt disrespected was about the pair of my boots in this Army-Navy store, but Stormy liked us, you know what I mean? They did hire me at that other place, they may have joked, it was really good-natured joking, they weren't, you know, I wasn't harassed or, you know, I didn't feel threatened physically. You know, Rod coming up in his, you know, that we were kind of, well, we were a little odd, but they accepted us. There wasn't hostility. There wasn't ignorant, aggressive hostility that was just blank, you know, you couldn't, and for me, I had very little money. I was single. You know, Clint and Carol had more money. They had the motorcycle and the truck, and they were more exploratory than I was, and so they met more people. I tended, I think, to be a little more in the heart of things. I'm a homebody anyhow, so I got out, but not as much. So I don't know if I ran across as many people or knew as many of the, you know, little corners and nooks and crannies. But as you mention it, I say, you know, we were lucky. And then I think partly because I lived so much up there, that a lot of outside things I didn't feel quite as much also. You know, and also, you know, I see the next generation coming back as, you know, as Beth, you know, constantly uses that phrase, but as I've got her daughters and see what they're doing in their own houses and the farm, and hear of other, you know, the next generation. Betsy says, I'm the prequel, so I said, you know, then there's the sequel, you know, there's the main event and then the sequel. But there's something that has drawn people back here, and I can feel it here. And I feel it this evening, the fact that this many people are here. Any other questions or reminiscences that anybody else wants to add?
I'm just wondering, and I can't see them around the corner, but we have another group of people up Sixes in Elephant Rock area
Yeah.
here
Is that
tonight.
you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I lived at Elephant Rock in 1974.
I'm happy to give you the center floor here, Joe.
Oh, no, that's all right. But anyhow, yeah, Elephant Rock.
So was that a large group of people?
No, it was really, like she said, in the winter, it would you know, get down to about 10, you know, and in the summertime, you know, the swimming and the Elephant Rock was a lot different situation. It was 10 miles up, so it was more remote, and the 80 acres is a kind of a garden spot. It's about maybe 5 or 10 acres of flat, you know, where there's just no slope, which is nice. And so there was a lot of nice creeks up there, and we had saunas, and we had several houses, no electricity, and no indoor plumbing except for gravity water. But lots of experiences, learning the lifestyle that I kind of learned about as my people were some of the pioneers that came across to settle in Corvallis and Willamette Valley. We just thought we were playing this, having this tremendous experience at trying to live like that. Now, there wasn't the experience of not having anything. There was the experience of going, getting the food stamps or the surplus food. But we did we cleaned out a lot of barns down here on the coast for the manure. And we thought that was kind of the important thing, and we tried to stay up there a lot more. We weren't as involved with jobs and working down here on the coast as much. We thought the weather was better up there. Yeah, it really was.
Yes.
You're talking about this community being accepting. I don't know if that was the rule. Joe and I have a very good friend who lives in Ashland, and she spent 5 or 6 or 7 years up in the mountains on a commune, and when they would come down to town, Ashland, the police would follow them, and they were allowed only to go to the grocery store and the laundromat, and then they had to leave. And the gas station.
I mean, that's amazing because Ashland has the theater.
Oh, but that's, this
Thought,
is,
you know,
That was pre-shit.
that was okay.
yeah, and then they were sent out of town.
Yeah, I mean, so that, I mean, that just once, again, sort of opens my mind to how accepting this community
Yeah.
was. Yeah, and yes.
I have another question. I need to read the book to get this answer probably, but I was curious, when you left this lifestyle.
Yeah.
Was it dramatic and a slow transition, or was it difficult for you, or did you just jump in and say, I'm done with this new life?
Yeah, spoiler alert.
Okay,
You know,
okay.
because I left, you know, had to do with some money things around the layout. But I left here, I had finally run out of money. I wasn't gonna earn money. Pick and brush wasn't gonna do it for me. Waitressing wasn't gonna do it for me. I tried to sell any trinkets I had, that wasn't gonna do it for me. I tried picking straw, you know, I'd done everything. And I stepped on my glasses and getting out of bed, and they were on this shelf, and it was 2x4. And I knew I couldn't replace them. So I said, so when I left, I knew it was slightly tenuous as to whether we were gonna continue. But I knew I had to earn money. So my image was I would go down to San Francisco. I had a city planning master's degree that I never used, but I thought I'll brush it up and find a job or something. I don't know what I thought. You know, I had no clothes. I thought I'd send money back to the group, because I wanted to make sure we could continue to help contribute toward the land, and then I would support myself down there and then come back. I didn't know, 6 months, a year, whatever it was. And while I was gone, things fell apart. But leaving, first off, I did get a job in a city planning office in Berkeley. I can remember, they must have hated me because all I could talk about was say, well, on the land, this is how we did it. Or what mine, I was always referring back to this fabulous lifestyle, like, well, who are you guys, my life, I thought they must have just gone whack. The other thing is, and I write about it, that it's like going naked into the woods. You live, sleep, share, you know these people intimately. In one form or another, you've been with them pretty much and had dinner with them every night and fought with them or whatever. And you live in this sort of enclave against the them. And it's not that we were paranoid, but you just make this little thing. And then you're going back out into the straight world, and you're going out into the world. It's like a divorce, but you had 5 husbands, and all 5 husbands disappeared, and your kids. You know what I mean? Everybody was just wiped out of your life, and you're this lone individual in this big city with a totally different experience. No community behind you, no familiarity behind you. I mean, you know the culture. It was hard, it was lonely. And then bit by bit, I think as things sort of fell apart there, someone would come down and visit. So you guys, I got one person, you know what I mean? And I think that's how Stuart and I partially got together. You just had the commonality of this experience, and it was home to you. Yeah, so, and then I just, for one reason or another, that things had fallen apart here, and then I got grumpy and said, I'm never going back up there, even to visit, because yeah. So
That was all a misunderstanding.
Yeah. So hopefully that answers it. Yeah. Is there another question over here? I see one. There's something over here. Any other questions, or anybody else have other memories they want to share?
I have memories of Shorty Rockstead. When I was a kid, my dad used to take me up there, and Shorty got a sheep muzzle loader. She's still hunting her muzzle loader. That was probably in '63 or so.
Oh, yeah.
And then Woody's orchard, we used to spot like deer there. And in '70, I had a Honda 100 motorcycle. I used to ride up there. I didn't see anybody naked in the woods.
99% of the time. It was cold, you know what I mean?
But you're looking.
Yeah, that's it. Everybody's going, let me see what you'll find out.
They're was Naked in the Creeks.
Yeah,
a lot.
yeah,
That
that's
was
right.
it.
I remember when at one point,
Smart of that.
my mother said, well, here's a bathing suit. You'll need a bathing suit. I knew she was part of that. But you're talking about Shorty. Clint and Carol knew Shorty because they bought the land. And so they had gotten old stories from him. And I do have a photograph of Shorty. He looked almost elfin with that. I think there were, and the stories that Clint and Carol would tell about him, and I think I met him once or something. I think he lived up there till his wife died, or he lived up there with his wife or something. The big story was, I think he shot a bear or something sitting on the outhouse. That was like, oh, wow.
Well, I think it was Shorty, and I'm not sure who else, but, we bought the place, Woody sold it to Joanne.
Yeah.
And we bought it from Joanne, so, the first week I lived there, Bill wasn't there, and this car right up the driveway, and it's Woody, who was, they called him 5x5.
Yeah.
And he said, comes up and he goes, "Get out of my house," and I was so young, I'm like,
Oh, why?
he said that it's mine, and I said, "Oh, I think we was bought it." And he said the Joanne still owed him money, and he hadn't been cashed out yet, so he was pissed. But then shortly after that, there was a walk-in cooler in the garage, which is, it's different now, but it was this big old space, and I would put apples in there. And shortly after moving there, I opened the cooler door, and there is this skinned bear hanging gaff up. It's very human. I don't know if you've ever seen a skinned bear, but it's just like a human body, and I just like, and I don't know if they were just trying to get to me or what, but they were still using the walk-in cooler from two ownerships.
What, he was still using it, or, yeah?
I don't know
Who was
I
it?
think it was Shorty and,
Shorty didn't have your place.
and then they brought me, they just wanted to, mess with us. They came by with some raccoon meat and some bear meat, and they'd marinated it in molasses for 2 weeks. It was just this black charred wall. And we had to sort of pass muster and try it.
Oh, yeah. Well, evidently you were received with less kindness than we were. Or maybe you're just more
I think they got a
obsessive.
kick out of us, but they just, who are these people?
Yeah, yeah. And Shorty liked, I think Shorty was always friendly, and Woody liked us. I think he liked the excitement of having us around, and he really did want to teach us about stuff. But there was always that little twinkle in his eye. Any other questions? Or reminiscences? I did lug about 10 books. 2 of them are gone, have been given away or purchased. So there are about 8 books for sale. If people want them, I make nothing off of it. So it's not like I'm hustling my books. But and I'm happy to sign if anybody wants anything. And thank you for this wonderful,
Need to buy some books because
I'll take one.
she needs a little room in her luggage to take home some things, some homegrown Langlois goodies.
Okay, I've got cranberry syrup, I've got a blackberry jam, I've got some
Albacore,
bee-balls, well, thank you. It is, I drove up, as I drove up, something to say, started thinking, back? It's very enticing. Thank you again. Saturday at the Lions Club, the library is having their annual book sale. If anyone would like to get a jump on